of us, young and old, male and female, introvert and extrovert, for relationships. He has created us to want friendships who will laugh with us and who will cry with us. Friends who knows our faults and love us anyway. Friends who will accept us and understand us, and to challenge us and stick by us. Friends who can make us better, and friends that we can make better. Every one of us needs those kinds of friendships. Some of us are more aware of that need than others. Some of us are less social than others. But all of us need some good few friends. Do you remember when Jesus walked this earth and began his ministry, that he surrounded himself with many friends and associates? But his close friendships were even a smaller circle. He had 12 disciples. And even within those 12 disciples, he still had even closer friends, the inner three. Remember who those were? Peter, James, and John. Jesus shared things with them that he didn't share with the wider circle of friends. I believe that we can take a clue from Jesus. I think there are three kinds of friendships everyone here needs to have. Friendships that can make a huge difference in our lives. Friendships that don't happen by accident, but can be prayerfully sought out and cultivated. And I believe that we can see those three types of friendships in one of the best examples would be God's best friend, or a man after his own heart. King David, the shepherd boy, the shepherd king. So first, let me encourage you to find a Jonathan. You may remember the story of David and Jonathan. Jonathan was the son of King Saul, the first king of Israel. He was the next in line to the throne. David was the young hero who defeated Goliath and became a part of King Saul's court. And 1 Samuel 18:1 describes their friendship this way. It says, Jonathan became one in spirit with David, and he loved him as himself. These two men were close friends. They sacrificed for each other. In 1 Samuel 18:4, we read that Jonathan gave David some of his clothes and military gear. Now, this gift symbolized Jonathan's recognition that David would one day be the king of Israel. Rather than feeling jealous that Jonathan was not going to get the throne himself, he sacrificed his own right to the throne to his best friend. They were loyal to each other. When King Saul told his followers to kill David, Jonathan rebuked his father. He rebuked the king, something that just is not done in those days. But Jonathan took the risk. He recalled David's faithfulness to the king in killing Goliath, and he stood up for his friend David. And they were affectionate towards one another. You remember when Jonathan and David worked out a system of signals whereby Jonathan told David to flee when it wasn't safe in the kingdom any longer for him? They met one last time and they wept openly together for having to say goodbye. You and I each need a Jonathan in our lives. A friend who is willing to sacrifice. A friend who will be loyal. A friend who is not afraid to show affection for us. Someone like David, someone like what David did for Jonathan, gave a moving eulogy when he passed away. Everyone needs a Jonathan, young or old, male or female. We all need Jonathans in our life. We all need the kind of friend that is referred to in the book of Proverbs as a man of many companies may come to ruin, but there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother. So who is your Jonathan? Can you name somebody off the top of your head? For some of you, your husband's or wife's name may spring to your mind when I ask that. That's a wonderful thing. That's what happened for me. But I hope your wife or your husband is your best friend, but I hope there's someone else there too. Because that's not the relationship I'm talking about. I'm talking about a close friend with someone other than your husband or wife. So who is that close friend for you? Or who's going to be that person for you? For me, it was my cousin Ethan. When something would happen in my life, I always knew I could count on him. I could call him up no matter what time of day it was, and he would be there to listen to me. I could count on him. He would be there to support me, a shoulder to cry on, someone who would just listen. He's truly my Jonathan. You may not have that relationship right now, but I urge you to begin praying and planning for it. You don't have to wait for it to come to you. Take a look around. Have faith to believe enough that God has placed someone in your life nearby who has the potential to be your Jonathan. Ask God to show you who that might be. Then invite them out to coffee or someone else or somewhere else. Try to intentionalize that relationship. Maybe you already know who your Jonathan is, but lately you have not really spent much time with him. Make the time. Put that friend into your schedule. Prioritize your relationship. It's not a luxury. It's not even an option, really. It's an investment in your life, in your future, in your continued effectiveness as a servant of God. So find a Jonathan. The second relationship that David had that I believe is a key for you and for all of us is to enlist a Nathan. Unfortunately, over time, King David had lost his way both spiritually and morally. He had lusted and he compromised and committed adultery with Bathsheba. And he had her husband Uriah murdered to cover it all up. You'll find that story in 2 Samuel chapter 11. And then in 2 Samuel chapter 12, the Bible describes how Nathan the prophet went to David and he told him a very unpleasant little story about a rich man who stole a poor man's lamb. And Nathan told him that story so that he would expose David's sin. But have you ever stopped to ask the questions, how did Nathan get in the palace to begin with? How did he gain entrance into the courts? How did he gain access into the king's presence? The answer is, he already had it. In fact, in 2 Samuel chapter 7, it tells how David bounced ideas off of Nathan, got his counsel about building a temple for God, and made himself accountable to the prophet. So by the time the whole affair with Bathsheba began, David had a friend in his life who had the authority to speak truth to him, to speak bluntly, and to advise and to correct him. I need that. I need a Nathan in my life, and I believe that you do too. I believe we all do. Nathan is an accountability partner. As Nathan was to David, as Jethro was to Moses, as Barnabas was to Paul. Nathan is somebody who loves you, but is not impressed by you, not fooled by you. Someone you can trust. Someone who will love you no matter what. Someone with whom you can be vulnerable. Someone to whom you can be accountable. Author Howard Hendricks says, have you got anybody in your life who's willing to keep you honest? Anybody who's willing to say to you, hey man, you're neglecting your wife and don't give me any guff. I know it. Everybody else knows it. it's about time that you knew it too. Some people even give their accountability partner a list of questions to ask them every single time they get together to make for sure they're keeping on the right path. A woman who is struggling with her prayer life and Bible study might have her accountability partner ask her, have you prayed and read your Bible every day this week? Or a man who is struggling with addictions might have his Nathan ask him, have you been victorious over your temptation in that area this week? And then, of course, that man or that woman in your life might also, you could be their Nathan. In fact, I think the best accountability relationships are mutual ones, where both people are learning to be vulnerable, trusting, and accountable with each other. And obviously, your Nathan needs to be someone you can trust with your real self. Someone who will keep a confidence and never betray you or abandon you. This sort of relationships doesn't happen by accident, but it can happen. Who's your Nathan? Who's going to be your, or who are you going to give the authority to speak truth to you? To speak bluntly to you? To advise you and to correct you? Someone who loves you but is not impressed by you, not fooled by you, someone you can trust, someone who will love you no matter what, someone with whom you can be vulnerable and you can be accountable. You may not have that relationship right now, but I urge you to begin praying and planning for that relationship. It doesn't happen overnight. That kind of relationship develops over time. You may approach someone with an invitation to have lunch together each week for a while, and during that time you may be testing the waters, measuring whether you and that other person might someday reach that point in your life. But please believe me when I say that even if you're not a prince or a giant killer or a king, you need a Nathan in your life. So find a Jonathan, find Nathan, and then finally, one more relationship David had that I believe is a key for you and all of us, is to invest in a Solomon. David, of course, knew that he would not always be the king. There would come a day, as there comes for all of us, when everything he knew, everything he had accomplished, everything he had would pass on to someone else. And there was no shortage of people in David's life who wanted his kingdom. All you got to do is look at his sons. Absalom led a rebellion against him. But David didn't choose any of them to hand his kingdom down to them. He didn't choose either of them to mold and to mentor. He chose Solomon. And on his deathbed, David said this to Solomon: I am about to go the way of all the earth. So be strong, act like a man, and observe what the Lord your God requires. Walk in obedience to him and keep his decrees and commandments, his laws and regulations, as written in the law of Moses. Do this so that you may prosper in all you do, and wherever you go, and that the Lord may keep his promise to me. If your descendant watches how they live, and if they walk faithfully before me with all their heart and soul, you will never fail to have a successor on the throne of Israel. He went on to advise Solomon on the the specifics of taking over the crown, and whom to trust and whom not to trust, and so on. He passed on more than a crown and a kingdom. He passed on wisdom. He passed on skills. He passed on instructions. He passed on his legacy. I want to suggest that kind of relationship for every follower of Jesus Christ here today. You need a Solomon. someone to whom you can pass on wisdom, skills, and instructions. This is usually a younger man or woman whom you can mentor and influence, someone whom you can pass your legacy to. Not that you're perfect. You're not. And you never will be. That's okay. Neither are the people who are sitting around you. Not that you're a spiritual giant either. You don't have to be. But there's still someone you can influence, as you yourself have been influenced. You can teach someone as you have been taught. Encourage someone as you have been encouraged. So who is your Solomon? Is there somebody who comes to your mind, someone you can show the ropes to, a friend that you can bring alongside of you? You may already have such a person. Or someone may be coming to your mind right now. But what if they're not? What if you have no idea who your Solomon is? How do you find that person? First, pray that God will bring that person into your life, or they're already in your life, and that he will point them out to you. Second, take initiative. Put up your antennas, look around for a while, and then ask someone if they're willing to be that person in your life. Thirdly, keep at it. To quote Howard Hendricks again, don't be surprised if it takes more than one or two experiences before you find that person. Because there has to be some personal, there's a chemistry that grows in good mentoring relationships. I truly believe that if we will emulate David, the man after God's own heart, and build relationships as he did, like Jonathan, Nathan, and Solomon, I believe we'll be blessed. And our lives will be blessed, and the lives of others will be blessed and enriched in immeasurable ways. Far beyond that blessing, of course, is one more friendship. The most important of all our friendships to have. And that is, of course, the friendship with God through his Son, Jesus Christ. He is the ultimate friend who sticks closer than a brother. There is no better friend, and no one who has come farther or done more to be your friend than Jesus. His sacrifice on the cross makes it possible for you to be delivered from sin, from death, from hell. His loyalty literally sent him to hell and back for you. And his love for you is both infinite and eternal. If you're here today and you have not yet invited Jesus into your life and into your heart to be your Savior and your friend, I urge you to do that too. Open your heart and invite him in. That decision is yours. So whatever your decision is, come now as we stand and sing.